look in our space. We have somebody in our space that is a recovering addict that millions of people look up to, millions of people watch, that has turned around his life and has become an example of how to live their life. I want to talk about this Nick Rekieta thing. And it's a really important thing that's going on. And people are like, why do you want to talk about this? Well, I don't know everything about this Nick Rekieta thing. All I know is the stuff from the outside, right? He was a guest on our show once. I wouldn't call him a friend. I'd call him somebody that I interviewed, and we've traded DMs a few times, but that's about it. But the reason I wanted to talk about this was not necessarily about Nick, because there's a larger issue associated with this, because I think it'd be very naive of us to do what we do and to not think that there's people in our audience who are also struggling. And without getting on, the stool and trying to give some rah-rah speech, Nick has gone through some really tough things over the last, I'm guessing, right? Just by the look of the situation, he's gone through some really self-induced issues, to the point to where, there was the viral clip being passed around of him, just in a horrible mess of a situation a couple days ago on a stream. And he was arrested yesterday on stream, not on stream. He was arrested yesterday, and his information was out there booked. And this morning, actually during his show, they had his arraignment and what he was charged with. And without going too far into it, it was drugs. It was actually a lot of drugs. And the drug possession could face up to 26 years in jail. But not so, like I said, this isn't necessarily about Nick, right? What I really want to focus on is the idea of what everybody saw with Nick 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and the person that he is now, because there's definitely been a slide along the way. And I know that there's people in our community that are struggling. I said it'd be very naive of us to think that there's not people in our community who aren't dealing with, alcohol issues, drug issues, things like that. And I hope that in addition to this being a major wake-up call for Nick, it's a wake-up call for you as well. Because you matter and you're important. And like I said, I don't want to do this rah-rah thing, but like I said, everybody sees us on screen, and that's what people see. And on the surface, Nick seemed like he had it all together until he didn't, because there's always something going on behind the scenes when it comes to this stuff. There's always, whether it's, relationship stuff, children's stuff, real life stuff that's happening. That's when we're not live, and when Nick was not live. And that apparently led to very bad decisions. And, obviously we want nothing but the best for Nick and with anybody who's struggling. And it's tough. And before we went live, Blabs, we were talking kind of about, people talk about like the downfall of Nick. And, at one point he during some of these, some of his live streams, he'd have 100,000 people watching him. That's
Johnny Depp stuff.
Johnny Depp, the Amber Heard, the Kyle Rittenhouse case. He was in the law tuber space. He was the authority of that space. And I don't know what his last live stream, I don't know what his viewership looked like. His last live stream a couple days ago. But a lot of people will say that, I think on the surface they go, well, this is a dude who had 100,000 people watching him at one time. And now he has, let's just say, I don't know, 2,000 people, 5,000 people, 1,000 people, whatever. And they'll say, look, what a failure. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, if you have one person watching you, that's a miracle, right? Right now we have, just between X and YouTube, we have almost 3,300 people watching. We have another 350 watching over on Rumble. We have close to 4,000 people watching this right now. That is a freaking miracle, right? That each of you guys showed up on a day-to-day basis. So people who are, talking about how much he's fallen off from a YouTube perspective, I mean, he rode the wave. He had success, and I can absolutely see how in his own mind, when he's streaming to 100,000 people and he's streaming to, a small percentage of that, how in his own mind, he can see, oh, well, I failed or whatever. But that's not the case. This is the content wasn't there to support his content. So, but Gabe, we were talking about this before. I don't know. You wanted to kind of touch on this as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I do think it's very sad. I don't know Nick. I mean, I know of him. Everyone who does YouTube knows of him. And I think it just reminds you that famous quote, there before the grace of God go I. We all have our problems. We all have our things that we've done. I've never been into drugs or alcohol, and I'm not saying I'm better. I struggled with food. I'm 265 pounds. I was 305 last summer. So I get addiction and dealing with things in funny ways. And, food, that's, you can abuse food, right? So it's very sad to see. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm actually a grandfather. I have a granddaughter that's a year and a half old. And I heard he has children. So that just makes it even more tragic. And I really hope he has good friends, not internet fake friends or whatever. And I hope he has good friends and family around him and his wife and the people, because the little I've heard, and it's like a game of telephone. You hear stuff, you don't know what's true. It sounds terrible, like the legal ramifications that could be possible. Sounds like a nightmare. And I just feel really sorry, because we've all done dumbass things. Like I said, there before the grace of God go I. It could have been any of us in any of this stuff. So it's heartbreaking. And one of the worst parts I've seen is like friends of his or whatever dogpiling, making fun and using it to monetize. And that, man, the internet, sometimes I feel like social media, the fans, you guys making friends like you, Blabs, Dan, like meeting awesome people online is amazing. And then you see the ugly side of social media and you're like, I don't
Right.
even want to go on this shit again. That's how I feel about it sometimes when I see the bullying and the doxing, and it's a tragedy. I feel sorry. I'll pray for the guy, because wow, that's just awful.
Some people are like, Nick was a snake, Nick was this, Nick was that, right? But like, if you see a wounded animal, are you just gonna sit there and laugh at it, right? Like,
No.
you want to help it. You don't know what that animal's done, and maybe that animal, like, I'm just, a broader analogy, right? Like this guy is clearly hurt. You've seen the slide, right? And whether he's done shitty things or not, or whether he is a piece of crap or not, he's clearly struggling, right? And people will say that I've been called, I've been too nice, right? With some of these people, you're giving them too much grace. I don't know. I just want what's best for people, right? And when you see somebody who has clearly lost that much weight, who's clearly struggling with substance abuse, that is tough. And I want them to be successful. I want them to be successful in getting that out of their life, getting their life in order, and more importantly, for their kids.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. Dan, do you have anything on this?
Oh man, tough stuff. Who am I to give life advice? But if I can be so bold as to share my 2 cents, a little bit of my own experience with my own mental health. Just, man, don't wait to kill the dragon. Like, don't wait until it becomes a dragon for you to kill. Kill it as it is a little a little lizard. Don't wait till it becomes this huge thing, because that sort of stuff never happens overnight. It gives plenty of signals beforehand. So kill it while it's small. It may sound oversimplistic and stupid, but it's like, dude, keep your house in order. Just exercise, eat right. Those little things that you neglect start piling up. And it may sound oversimplistic, but when those things start piling up, it becomes this behemoth of a dragon that you need to slay, and you're not strong enough anymore to do that. So don't wait. Get your life in order while it's easy.
Well, and I'll say this. People like, he doesn't. I've seen people say he doesn't deserve a chance. Right? Look in our space.
No.
Look in our space. We have somebody in our space that is a recovering addict that millions of people look up to, millions of people watch, that has turned around his life and has become an example of how to live their life. And speaking of Gary, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
If Gary was written off because when he was at his lowest, you wouldn't. Gary wouldn't. Listen, the reality is Gary wouldn't be here. FNT wouldn't be here. Jeremy probably wouldn't see the success he has. We wouldn't be here. Like the trickle down effect from just giving him a chance to succeed and him getting back up on his feet. Like that's the trickle down effect. The butterfly effect is massive. So, people can dance on his grave all you want, but he does deserve a chance for redemption. And people fall down all the time. I say this to my kids ever since they were kids. What do you do when you fall down? You get back up, right? And sometimes it's just harder to get back up. And Nick, I know you're not going to watch this, but if you do, we hope you get back up, and we hope you can stand back up and get things figured out.